Right, good evening everyone. So I was challenged to do this without any slides tonight, so here goes. Who here is using Docker already? Quick show of hands. Yeah, quite a few of you. Anybody in production? That number's increasing. The more and more I do this talk, the more I see hands staying up for the production side. And there's lots of ways to do Docker in production. I'm going to talk tonight about AWS Fargate. AWS Fargate is closely related to a product we've got called ECS, which is EC2 Container Service, and this is our management platform. Within ECS, we have this concept of tasks and services. To anybody from the Kubernetes crowd, because there's quite a lot of you here, I know, a task is basically a pod, and the services is a direct translation there. So a service make sure we're running X number of copies of a task. A task is a container definition. And what we're going to do today, I'm going to actually deploy into a Fargate cluster a little chat application that you can all get on the screen and send abusive messages to me on. I'm looking at you over there, the troublemakers at the front. So what I'm going to try and highlight is that with Fargate, you don't have to manage any infrastructure yourself. So ECS, when we brought that out, what we did, we created a platform, we created a management section of orchestration for containers, a scheduler, and we took all that away from you guys. We did the heavy lifting, and all you had to do was bring a few EC2 instances and join them to the cluster. With Fargate, you don't even have to do that. You just give us a container, we run it on an instance that's big enough, we place it, we make sure it's got as many copies as you want running, and we do the scaling for you. Now, the advantage of this is that you don't have to manage infrastructure. You don't pay for an EC2 instance underneath, you just pay us for compute time. So there's about 50 different configurations for a container. It starts off from 0.25 of a CPU and 512 meg of RAM, and it goes right up to 4 virtual CPUs for that container and 30 gigabytes of RAM. So if anyone's got a use case for the latter one, I'd really want to hear that, because I've never seen anyone run a container that size. So I really want a use case for that. The idea is that you can focus just on your container and your application, and you make it run the way you want to run it. And you don't have to worry about managing infrastructure, scaling infrastructure, scaling up and down, because both are quite complicated things to do. And we handle all that in the background for you. So what I'm going to try to show today, through the power of a demo gods permitting, is how that works. So I'm going to start off first, and I'm going to show you a couple of things I've pre-created just for time's sake. So I've created a VPC. Let's make this a bit bigger so you can all see it at the back there. So I've created a VPC, and I've created a Fargate cluster, which I'll explain in a minute, because nothing's actually been created. So in my VPC, I've created 3 public subnets, and I've created 3 private subnets. Now, I always try and stick to best practices. I never put any instances in public subnets. I only put things like load balancers, and if I have to put a Bastion host in the public subnet and give it a public IP, I will. All my infrastructure, I run in a private subnet, and I use load balancers to have the connectivity from the internet back into my service. That way I've got nice isolation of what's routable. So my instance itself, if I was running an instance, wouldn't be directly routable from the internet. You have to come through a load balancer. And that's just a security best practice that I recommend you all do. So I've got 3 public, 3 private, and they're spread out across the availability zones for high availability. I've then created this Fargate cluster. Now, my Fargate cluster goes through, and I'm creating a public load balancer that's attached to my Fargate cluster as well. That exists in the public subnet. And with a Fargate cluster, I don't even have to specify what subnet it's running in until I use it. So until I use it, I don't have to specify. When I create a cluster, nothing is getting created. No resources are getting created. So if I look in the North Virginia region, which is the only place Fargate's working at the moment, look out for announcements. You'll notice I've got no running instances at the top. I've got no EC2 running at all. I'm not paying for any instances. So remember that. So My Fargate cluster has been created. So if we have a look what that looks like, I get this image here. I get Fargate cluster, ECS cluster, and then I get a big long string. And that string is because I've used CloudFormation. CloudFormation puts a UID on the end of it. There we go. And on here you can see I've got no services running, no tasks running, and nothing pending. And more importantly, there's an EC2 section underneath here. So I've got no container instances. Now, why is that showing? Because I've just told you we don't run EC2 instances. Well, you can have a hybrid cluster, and I'll talk about the benefits of a hybrid cluster as we start doing some of the deployments, because some of them take a little while, so I need a bit of filler. But just remember, we've got no instances running for this demo. So what I'm going to build here, I'm going to build a little chat application, and I'm going to deploy 3 containers for the front end, and it's a simple Node.js application. It's a socket.io application, and it talks to a Redis server at the back end. Now, if I was doing this in production, I'd use something like Elasticache. So I'd deploy an Elasticache cluster of Redis, and I'd use a high availability of that. But I wanted to demo a new feature of Fargate to you, which is service discovery. So we're actually going to put our Redis server in a container inside our Fargate cluster, and we're going to make that IP address it's given dynamically available in DNS automatically. So one thing to note about Fargate, when you do a deployment, every task, and a task can be up to 10 containers, all closely related, gets given a elastic network interface within AWS. So this effectively extends your VPC into the container land, which means if I've got an EC2 instance running, I can directly access that container without doing any natting or forwarding or special routing. It just works in my VPC. So let's get on with this, and let's see if I can remember how to do this, because it is a week since I've done it. So I'm going to go in first of all, and I'm going to create my Redis master server. Now this template's actually quite basic. We're going to put in here Redis master, and this is where you see the limitations of my brain that I can't type and talk at the same time, so I apologise for any quiet time. I'm going to go in here, and I'm just going to launch this basic CloudFormation stack. This is a really simple stack deliberately. All it's going to do is create me a task definition within ECS. I've not got it to create me a service definition because I want to show you on the console the new service discovery bit. So we're going to hope this creates very, very quickly. Yes. This is normally the bit that breaks, so I'm quite happy now because I play about with it and break things. So in here, I still have no services and no running tasks. If I click on task definition, I've got this production section here. And as you can see, I've used this 3 times. So I've created a task definition which basically defines that I'm running my container on port 6379. I'm going on there and saying which image I'm using, which is just the standard, if I can find it in this definition. It's just a standard Redis container from Docker Hub. So I'm pulling from an external Docker registration. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to create a new service. So a service is what tells Fargate or ECS to run a task and how many times you want to run it and where you want to place it in a cluster. So if I was running multiple copies of this, I'd probably pick a packing algorithm called AZ spread. I feel really dirty for saying that American way. AZ spread, which basically means I'm going to run one version of my container in every availability zone. I've got 3 availability zones to hit. And then that way I've got great high availability. But for this, I'm going to say we're going to use Fargate. I'm going to go through here and just put some standard stuff in. Redis master. I'm only going to run one because I've not done a Redis cluster yet because it's a pain with Docker, which is why I use Elasticache if it was production. And I'm going to hit next. Now, a lot of this is already pre-made. The VPC I created was a 10.0.0.0/16, and handily I can remember which subnets I've used, which is 3, 4, and 5. So this is the only place where I actually have to specify where I want my container to run. The cluster at the moment doesn't really exist in Fargate land. It could start in any subnet I wanted. All I have to do is tell it where I want my task to run in which subnets, and that's where the Elastic Network interface gets connected. Security groups, I'm not going to let it create one for me. I'm going to use, I love it when they change the console on me. I'm going to use a predefined one. It just allows 6379 from my entire subnet. It's a pretty simple one. Yet again, not production ready. I'm not going to load balance it. I'm just going to hit the service direct. Now to hit the service direct, I'm getting this Elastic Network interface that comes up with an IP in my network. I don't know what it's going to be. So we have this service discovery. And I'm going to create a new namespace called local. And it's actually going to create me a hosted zone in Route 53 here. You can see I've only got 2 zones at the moment. The service is actually going to go through and create this for me. So it's going to create a new service catalog, Redis, and it's going to add a record for this particular service that comes up. Now, one thing I want to say as a caveat is the default for this, this TTL here, the time to live, is 300 seconds. It's really, really bad default for service discovery, because if my service was to crash and I was going to replace it and get a new IP, I've got 5 minutes until my DNS record times out somewhere. So if you're doing this, set this to something more sensible, like less than 3 seconds, but I'll do 3 seconds on this. So consider that when you're doing that. Don't use the default of 5 minutes. It's not a good method to use. I'm going to go through. I'm not using auto scaling in this case, and it knows what cluster it's hitting automatically. So that's inherited from my service template. Create service. Keep your fingers crossed here as well. This is a bit I normally forget. See, demos don't normally go well, do they, for me? I don't know why I'm doing it all demo. So this has gone through, and I've created a private DNS name. I've created a service, and I'm using service discovery. So everything's gone green, which is great. And if we drop back here, we can see we've got a task which is pending. That means my Fargate cluster, which is cold deliberately. There's no EC2 instance there at the moment. Fargate now in the background is creating some EC2 instances that I'll never see and have to manage. And those instances are pulling down from Docker Hub, in this case, the Redis image. So this first container you launch will be the longest one you ever launch. All those after, because you've got infrastructure, will just be a lot quicker. It's a bit like a cold start with serverless, if you think of it like that. We're doing a cold start here. So if I look at my cluster now, look at that, it's updated already. I've got one service and one running task. So if we dig in here, have a quick look, we can see my Redis master is active. And if all's gone well, and I refresh this page here, I've got 3 hosted zones. So service discovery has gone through, and it's created me this local section here, and scrolled off. And it's not registered yet, but it should come in a minute. Fingers crossed. We should get in there a DNS entry for Redis master. So whilst that spins up, we shall go back to CloudFormation. Now, I'm just going to drop to the console a minute and show you some of the templates I've got. So when I created a cluster, all I had to do in my cluster definition, gone to capitals there, is I go in and I set some defaults up. And all I'm doing here really is creating this section here at the top. So I'm just saying create me an ECS cluster. And then further down, I say I require Fargate capabilities. And then that way it knows I don't have to bring any EC2 instances to it. So it's all created automatically for me. And I could leave it there, but in this definition as well, I've also gone through and created some security groups. And I've created a ALB and some security groups for that. So that's defined in this template as well. I'll actually push all these over to GitHub later on so you can download them and try them out. So it's quite trivial, and you can CloudForm in 5 or 6 lines to get an ECS cluster in Fargate mode up and running. Right, let's have a quick look back at my Route 53. It's a bit concerning that I've not got a DNS entry yet, but we'll deal with that as we go along. So now I'm going to go in and create a stack. And I'm actually going to now create my chat application. So my chat service here. This is going to create a task definition for me, which is telling it where my container is, one that I built earlier. And it's also going to create the service for me, so I don't have to do it. And the service is going to say I want to run 3 versions of the task. So we should see that in the ECS console. So I hit next here. And we might have to cheat with service discovery, and I might have to add it in myself. So what could go wrong, eh? So this is my chat application. Desired count, I've got some pre-populated values in here that's in my template, but I could override it if I wanted, and I could say 6 versions. I'm not going to, just for time's sake. This is where my Docker container is. It's in ECR, which is our private container registry. Fargate already has access to that. It's one of the rules we set up in IAM to give the Fargate instances access into your ECR. We also support public repositories. And if you want to use private ones, we're going to bring out support later in the year for using third-party private repos for your containers. So I'm going to go through here, and my Redis endpoint, if it gets created in DNS, is this. And this value here is getting passed to the Docker container as an environmental variable. So if you're running Docker on the command line and you do a Docker run -e and then give it a variable name, this is exactly what Fargate's doing in the background for us via this. So I'm going to hit next. And we're going to create this. So this might not run if my DNS doesn't update. So we might have to add a DNS entry in manually and cheat. So if I just have a quick look at my Elastic Network interfaces. Ooh. Redis. And we've been given this IP address here. So for some reason, I obviously didn't click on sync properly. I'm going to create here and cheat and do what service discovery is supposed to be doing and set that to 3 seconds. It's probably because I said the default was stupid. It heard me and it's decided to break it. Ah, you're right, Redis Master, yes. See, what I was doing is seeing if you was paying attention. Congratulations to you. And over there. Right, here we go. Create. Oh. Yes, maybe it has created. Yeah. Maybe I didn't pray to the right demo gods. Let's do a little dance as we wait. Oh. No. Let's try and manually create again. Yeah. No, I know what might be going on here. Let's have a quick look here. So we've got this service discovery in, not server discovery, service. Oh dear. No pressure. Whose idea was it to have a beer before? Ooh. Ooh, list. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, it's there. It says it's there, so we'll see if this works. Maybe it's just the console being slow updating. Right, so my chat application, got a creating process. Let's see what's happening over on a cluster level. Cluster level, I've got 2 services now rather than 1, and I've got 2 pending tasks. That's never really a good sign. Let's have a look at what's happening on my Fargate chat. It's probably moaning that I can't find the Redis master DNS record. So let's have a look in here. So it gives me a chance to show you the log section. So with the logs, we can look at stopped, And this is all integrated with CloudBlox logs. Yes, look at that. It's failed to get Redis master local. So what I might do is roll this back quickly. And if I do an action, delete that stack, yes. And then go to my ECS as that deletes. Let's try that again. I knew it wasn't a good morning. So in my cluster, 2 services. I'm going to pick the Redis master and I'm going to delete this one. Oh, I can type delete me okay. I can type the dangerous commands okay, just not the normal ones. So that one's gone. Go back to my task definition. Let's try this again. Fingers crossed this time, everyone. Fargate. Service name, and we're going to call this one Redis master. I'll change the next one. Number of tasks 1. And we'll hit next. We'll go through and select all our subnets again. 5, 4, and 3. And we'll change the security group to a predefined one. Right, let's read it this time. So I'm going to use this namespace, and in here I'm going to call it please work. And we're going to go through it, and let's just give it 30 seconds just in case it was me moaning about it earlier. And we'll hit next step. Next step, create service. Did anybody see me do anything different there? Did I do anything different? I don't think I did. So maybe service discovery is broken. Somebody raise a ticket quickly. So this is going to go through and create our ECS, our Fargate service. Got a pending task and Route 53. Nothing's moaned yet. And what we might do, we'll cheat if this all fails. So we've got a running task. So let's have a quick look at our, this is what service discovery saves you doing, what I'm about to do. So I'm giving you a lesson in the work you don't have to do when it works. So I look at my network interfaces again. Let's refresh this. I've got a new one with the Redis group. I've got a new IP. Sorry? There's a public one assigned. Yeah, I don't know why I did that. That's probably because I didn't click just private. Could be the issue, actually. Let's go back to the service and kill the service and try that, because it only takes a few seconds. I didn't either, but I've had a beer. Right. Eyes peeled, everybody. Create a service. Fargate. Yeah, if you want to reach out to our managed service partners. No, it's not going to be a sales pitch. It's going to be a broken technical pitch instead. Edit this. Ah, look at that. Yes. We've all spotted it that time, haven't we? I do normally say disabled, so it could be that. Because it won't be able to reach out on the public IP address, because... Exactly. Redis Master 2. I'm not taking any chances now. Next step. Here we go. Create service. ECS, let's have a look. Let's have a bit of a refresh. Come on, everybody. Pray. So, Route 53, let's update. Nothing yet, everyone. You're going to make me find the IP address again, aren't you? Running task. We've got a running task. Come on. Right, we're going to cheat. Is the crux of this. Yeah. So, where was I? See, we don't have a public IP now. Still not created. So, let's create a record set and let's call it anything we want. So, beer and demos. Don't mix. 30 seconds. Give it the new IP address. What? Who's broken my DNS for me? We're going to really cheat now. So we're going to skip that and we're just going to stick the IP in. So service discovery is awesome. I'm raising a ticket when I get in. So we're going to go through here and we're going to do chat application. Hopefully it doesn't get upset by me giving it an IP address. I didn't code the app, so it probably will get upset. I'm going to go through, hit next, and create. Who knows? So my cluster should now have a second task in a second when CloudFormation creates it. It's creating me a task definition called Fargate chat. So this is a really simple task definition in here. It goes through, it's just basically saying I'm running on port 3000, so attach that. I've given it a Redis endpoint of an IP address because service discovery is not working. And I'm telling it it's going to run on Fargate. But it will also work on EC2. Now, I mentioned this earlier. I can have a hybrid cluster. Now, the idea of a hybrid cluster. So I come from a Kubernetes background, and it kind of made me a bit lazy in a way because I could use kubectl exec and I could get into a container running anywhere in my cluster and fiddle about on bash and fix a container, forget to commit it back to our source control. It gets redeployed and breaks again after then kubectl exec and go back in and fix it. When you're using ECS, you found you have to find the host the container is running on, SSH to the host, and then run Docker exec. And it's a bit of a faff, to be perfectly honest. But it made me a better admin by doing that because it meant I had to remember to put it in source control in order to get it out. With Fargate, you can't SSH into the underlying host. So if you really, really, really need to debug a container, what you need to do is stop it as a service, but start it as an EC2 instance, and it'll come back up and it'll run on there. And you can then SSH into the host. So fingers crossed, we've got a crate complete. This is good. This is good. And we've got 4 running tasks, even better. So what's happened here is none of our service discoveries worked, but my task has also created me a Fargate chat DNS entry. So for the very last part of this, and then I'll get off the stage and I have to get the hook out. We've got a URL, fargate-chat.digilution.io. I've got to pick an easier domain. And on here, you can all load this up in your browser. It's publicly available. I've got a really, really simple chat application that's running. Nobody type anything offensive in if you're on the Wi-Fi. And it's running, and as we can still prove if we go to instances here, without me having any EC2 instances. So I have containers running. I'm paying by the container. I'm not paying for EC2 instances to be half utilized or less. So Fargate's a really, really easy way. Takes away the management headache of those EC2 instances as well. I don't have to update the OS. I don't have to update the Docker agent. I don't have to update the Fargate, the EC2, the ECS client there either. So we take all that away from you and we get a nice little chat application at the end. Thank you, whoever typed that. Cheers.